How does IHL define unlawful combatants from terrorist groups? Imagine a soldier in uniform, following rules of war, and another person fighting without any clear sign of allegiance. How does international law tell the difference? International humanitarian law, or IHL, is the set of rules that protect people during war. It makes a clear distinction between lawful combatants and civilians. Lawful combatants are members of a country's armed forces or organized armed groups that meet specific rules. These rules include having a command structure, wearing a distinctive sign, carrying arms openly, and following the laws of war. When they meet these conditions, they can participate directly in hostilities and are protected as prisoners of war if captured. Now, what about those who don't meet these rules? That's where the idea of unlawful combatants comes in. These are people who fight without fulfilling the criteria for lawful combatancy. Often, they are members of terrorist groups that do not belong to a state's official armed forces or organized militias that follow IHL. Because they don't meet the legal conditions, they are not entitled to prisoner of war protections. Instead, they can be prosecuted under domestic criminal law for their acts of violence or terrorism. The term unlawful combatant isn't explicitly written in the Geneva Conventions, but it has developed through legal practice. In counterterrorism efforts, it's used to describe fighters who operate outside the rules of lawful combat. For example, they might not have a chain of command or wear uniforms. If there's doubt about someone's status, IHL says they should be treated as prisoners of or until a tribunal makes a decision. People involved in terrorist groups usually fall into this category. They don't meet the conditions for lawful combatant status, so they aren't protected as prisoners of war. But they still have rights under IHL, like protection from torture and inhumane treatment. They can be detained and tried under criminal law, not as prisoners of war. This classification is important for protecting civilians and ensuring fair treatment. IHL emphasizes that even those who fight unlawfully must not be deprived of their basic rights. It aims to balance the need to stop unlawful violence with the obligation to treat everyone humanely. So, in simple terms, IHL defines unlawful combatants from terrorist groups as those who fight without meeting the legal requirements for lawful combatant status. They don't get prisoner of war protections but still have protections against inhumane treatment. Their status allows for criminal prosecution, but their human rights remains protected under humanitarian law.